Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Human Dialogues. I'm really happy to be here with you one more evening. As you know, my name is Jessica Lockhart. I am the director of the International Institute of Humanology, and I invite interesting guests to this little show called Human Dialogues to approach different human topics. The topic of the month at the International Institute of Humanology is getting off the hamster wheel. So this month, we're talking about how to get out of the hamster wheel, how to deal with stepping down the business ladder, how to do with getting out of these situations that we might not enjoy, we might not want. And today's human dialogues is going to focus on one aspect of getting out of the hamster wheel. We're going to be talking about competition, because competition seems to be an important part of the hamster wheel for many people. To discuss this very interesting question that will be phrased as, is competition a valid drive? We're going to have a very unique guest, somebody I'm really proud and happy to introduce, because he is a serial entrepreneur, he is an investor, an interim manager, a trainer. His name is Pim de Bokx. He's going to be connecting from the Netherlands, and he's not only an enthusiastic advocate, pioneers, an enabler of startup ecosystems, but since 1999, he's also involved in numerous initiatives that promote entrepreneurship and support successful starting up and global impact. For Pim, having an entrepreneurial attitude is the way to navigate life and have a positive impact on people and the planet. He's been an entrepreneur since he was 21, and is still studying landscape architecture. He studied business science in Rotterdam while he operated his third company. Wow. In 1999, after his fifth company, he moved into an incubation and founded BVIT, Innovation Network, that helps innovation and the creation of new enterprises with its unique third-generation incubation, cluster incubation format, which is based on clever cooperation, something that I hope he explains a bit later. In 2006, when the company operated the only private incubator in the Netherlands that survived the economic recession in 2001, the company was recognized as the best science-based incubator of Europe. Wow. And the UKBI honored Pim with the International Business Incubation Champion Award 2011. 6 incubators have implemented the cluster incubator format. Pim is also actively involved in several projects to develop an even more competitive entrepreneurial economy. He advised on new legislation for the stimulation of entrepreneurship in higher education in the Netherlands, set up a management development program for managers at business incubators at the request of the European Commission, and for the European Space Agency, he set up the ESA BIC in Noordwijk, aimed specifically at high-tech entrepreneurs. Furthermore, Pim is EBN accredited ECBIC auditor, chairman of DIA, Dutch Incubation Association, and in 2015, he founded Pioneers. As a partner of startup ecosystems, Pioneers offers online software and services to enhance performance. In 2016, Pim got involved in Faces of Change Foundation as a treasurer. Faces of Change organizes empowerment and resilience programs for displaced and marginalized people aimed at forming a place in society. As a new initiative from this foundation, the Social Startup Impact Leaders International was set up. Starting as a development program to become an impact leader is dedicated to grow into a thriving social enterprise. And since 2017, Pim is involved in developing a new sector incubators within Dutch NGOs, the NGO PUM. Via PUM, P-U-M, managers and experts are sent to incubators in emerging countries to advance the performance of existing incubators and help the establishing of new incubators. In the past year, a group within the sector incubators has been working on a programmatic approach for regions and nations willing to cooperate on developing their startup ecosystems. As you can see, we have somebody with us tonight who knows a lot. And we're just hoping that he shares a little bit of his wisdom and knowledge with us tonight. Pim de Bokx, we are really happy to welcome you here on Human Dialogues. Hello, good evening. Open the microphone, please, Pim.
Thank you, Jessica. Sorry for this delay. Good evening, and it's such a wonderful introduction. There's hardly something else to say. I should put some laurels for you. I should have prepared that. Anyway, so thank you for inviting me, and let's see also the opportunity to connect with people in the world on what is really my passion is let's say, entrepreneurial way of dealing with the world, dealing with people, and connecting that with your topic, the question you asked is competition a valid drive, of course.
Yeah, the first question I would like to ask you about that is precisely what you understand by competition, because competition is in the mouth of many people, but it might be interpreted differently by different people. So the first question I would like to ask you is, Pim, what is competition in today's world?
Now, there are, of course, different ways. As sometimes we talk about healthy competition or unhealthy competition. But it's true, what are we really talking about? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a drive that everybody must recognize, mm-hmm. that you think you can do it better than somebody else, something you can do better than somebody else, or that you can do something that nobody does yet, mm-hmm. is forgetting about, which is also a competitive attitude. It's one of the typical talents, or maybe skill. It has all sorts of facets that an entrepreneur should have. A sort of view on the world where you can see there is an edge, a difference with what is already there, that you can do better, or that you can, what they call the gap, you can jump in the gap that's there. And that could be very commercial, but could also be very social or environmental. And the people that started Extinction Rebellion is because they recognize there is not enough attention to the risk we are taking, or we're on as a society, mm-hmm. that we become the next wave to be extinct. Mm-hmm. So competition is a drive, as you said. And if it's valid, of course, I could easily say that's in the eye of the beholder, but that's too cheap. But in our language, we use the frame healthy competition or unhealthy competition. Now you refer to clever cooperation. That's a slogan we had for the company I sold in 2011. And I think that's also one of the two reasons that we were in 2004 the only surviving private incubator in the Netherlands, mm-hmm. is that we didn't only focus on how to effectively help one individual startup or starting entrepreneur, but we looked at organizing them in a way that they could create synergies between them. Like with the insights from Porter's theory on clustering, we developed this cluster concept. So we selected companies that potentially have complementary skills or complementary market technology combination. And what happened effectively to measure that as an impact of our approach is that we had relatively many joint ventures, mergers in this cluster happening. And cluster is a word for a group, a bit of an organized group. And that was luck. We were lucky that an American university was doing research in that, and I have never seen an incubation program that had that result. And that was because I did my homework, as I always also say to startups, do your homework. It's a bit naughty to say so, like frame it like that, of course. But anyway, what I read is the promise of incubation programs is this synergy, but it never appeared in research that it really created synergies. Mm-hmm. And in my understanding at that time, as a already serial entrepreneur, when I started thinking about this, is that it is in that we're talking about 1999, so it's a while ago.
Yes. A few years ago, yeah.
And many incubators in those days were really focused programs. And they focused at, let's say, it still happens. They focus at fintech, not in those days, but let's say biotech or IT or stuff like that. And we said, oh, if you have like select them, a global focus is not that bad, but if you select the same people, let's say you focus on an IT sector as an incubator, and you all select, let's say, beta people, starting entrepreneurs, typical nerdy type of people with similar strategies and business propositions, ideas. What kind of synergy can you create? You can create efficiency. You can lower transaction costs because you work with groups, with batches. So you can save some, but create real synergies is quite difficult if you have all these similar sort of homogeneous group. Yeah. Then you have competition. You get competition between these startups in your program. I've been in many, because of my EBN auditing role, I've been in many incubators. And many times it's like, what is it? A multi-tenant building, closed doors, competition, patents, and non-disclosure agreements. That's not an incubator. That's not where, let's say, a breeding spot of new, innovative, creative, that's not happening there. So, this is also for you as a person, if you think about that, about maybe you work with any organization you work with. If you have all the same people, it's comfortable. It can be comfortable because you have a non-competitive culture, really cozy. Or it can be very competitive because you're all the same types, and because the culture is very performance oriented. And there are also between countries large differences in that sense. Mm-hmm. Then you might be very unhappy because it is always about who's first,
Mhm.
who has the best. Yeah, I've seen, yeah, I've been around. So it could be if you have all these male dominant guys together, it could be a tough place
Could be tricky. Yeah, I can
to survive.
imagine.
Or if I may very bluntly say, I've also been in a situation with 5 women. It was really hard time for me. But also when I talked, because I was their boss, I also heard the stories for some of these women was also quite difficult.
Hmm.
So because they were the same and they were, or not the same, everybody's different, but they had sort of the same feeling that they had to compete for my attention, for instance. So competition can be also quite demotivating. And one of the lessons I got from my work is that if you put together very similar people, you get either, and it's also how you develop the culture and the leadership, could be very harsh environment, or it could be a very lazy environment. Because if you agree together, we're not going to compete, we leave everyone to its own comfort zone, then the performance is not so great. So mixing types of people is really a good recipe, because then you have to negotiate.
Yeah.
You have to negotiate because you don't have the same things that make you tick.
Mhm.
And negotiation is like a basic form of cooperation, and that's where you get the real creativity in developing things that make the world better, or even fill a gap in the world that needs to be filled.
But see, then, Pim, according to what you just said, we've seen these last, I would say, 100 years, that some societies in the world really educated their children in values of competition. And kids were taught to compete very, very strongly. They had to compete in everything. They had to compete in their studies by passing tests that were comparisons amongst them. They had to compete in sports, even in the arts. They had to compete, compete, compete. So they grow up in a culture that is based on competition. Whereas there are other societies in the world, and I'm sure you have worked with both kinds, that are not so much based on competition. They're more based on collaboration, cooperation, and other values. As an entrepreneur and as an entrepreneur trainer, what do you think is best? Or do you think that one of the two models helps future entrepreneurs better? Are more competitive based societies yielding better results or not?
Yeah, yes and no. So there's no easy answer here. So let's say,
And you don't expect me to ask you easy questions today, do you?
But let me take you to 25 years ago in the Netherlands. Then I advocated, let's say, a more competitive stance. Too many people were lazy is maybe not a good word. Everybody worked hard, but I mean, let's say laid back, maybe not. They worked hard. It's not about that. But I mean, we follow what's being said, and no, just there's an expression also in the Netherlands that don't put your head above the grass, yeah, because then it's cut off. That was really exemplary, especially until the 80s. It started slowly changing. So basically, it has to do with the end of the industrial age in the Netherlands. That wave is a bit different from country to country, and it takes time, of course, to develop a new industry, a new society, new etc. So entrepreneurship, and more competition, wanting to be better or the best was really important for society to come up with new ideas that create value. Because before that, the value was not, was, let's say, preached by others and then followed by the rest.
Mhm.
We needed more people that started thinking and working on creating value, because the industry was going bankrupt, moving abroad. So high unemployment, stuff like that. So now, let's say, in the past 20 years, this, let's say, entrepreneurial economy has developed rapidly, but has developed well. So now it's a very entrepreneurial economy and society, the Netherlands. But it has also become a very individualistic society.
Mhm.
Or, yeah, relatively. I imagine the US is a bit more than the Netherlands. But in terms of, for instance, the difference between rich people and poor people, the Netherlands is worse than the US. So also, I think, together with Sweden and some of these countries you wouldn't think of, because we have still quite egalitarian society, have made it quite easy for people to become rich. And then once you have like past a million, so to say, it's quite easy to keep growing that million, because there is not much taxation and anyway, many gaps in the laws for that. And that is exemplary for, let's say, this competitive value that is being created, that's spinning out of control. It's not beneficial for the society anymore. People, they say themselves, oh, but we generate so many jobs and yada, 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 and we employ so many consultants, and yes. But if you see how much value is turned into capital that is privately owned, while this value is created in society, that is not sustainable in the long run. And yeah, I think we're starting to see, let's say, I try to help also people to see what is the result of that, the negative results of that. Example, I just read an article, and this is about the US just this morning, that it's difficult, like in Europe, to develop a new mine for instance, lithium, or as now is relevant, germanium or gallium,
Mhm.
because the Chinese withhold us this precious metals, is because in the US, they already have 500,000 mines that are abandoned, and society is, let's say, given these abandoned mines and has to pay for cleaning it up. Well, this is a very, very specific, good example of what happens if you don't manage or don't, let's say, control, or whatever you want to call it, this competition. So if you want to keep competition healthy, also within an organization, this competitive drive, this is also energy the company or the organization needs to keep creating value. then you also have checks and balances in place. It's nurture, but also correcting things. What the first mechanism is, of course, the values and norms that make the culture of the organization, and that are let's say the guidelines for leadership and for how people operate. Many organizations have like this piece of paper that describes the code of conduct. But have you ever asked who read the code of conduct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine what happens if you ask that.
Yeah.
So not many. Not many. I think it's now a good thing. It's fashionable to put on the wall the purpose or the mission, which helps, of course, I think already a little bit in that part. But a code of conduct should, of course, be, let's say, developed with the people. It's not like you hire a consultant to make a code of conduct and then this is it. This is as much as a designer or let's say an artist makes a statue, for instance. This is as much part of the design of your organization. And well, this is a bit different than with a statue because this is a living thing. This organization adapts, develops, because the world changes and adapts, sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better. You respond to that. So culture and values will change. Also, new people coming in, new generations with different ideas. So this should be something more alive than just a piece of paper from a consultant that designed this beautiful code of conduct. So this is really crucial because it's a relationship between structure and culture in that sense. You cannot have like a good checks and balances in your organization without also the values that are related to that. You cannot say we respect each other and we don't accept this type of behavior without having a structure to have some checks and balances on that, or some carrots to promote that kind of behavior. It doesn't work like that. So.
Yeah. So when we talk about competition being a valid drive, the question that comes to my mind is, okay, competition might be valid, as you explained, in certain cases, but is competition enough? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to create your company, you want to establish something, you want to do something, is competition a good enough drive? Or do you need to have a secondary drive? Do you need something else to drive you? Or is competition enough? What do you think, Pim?
Yeah. I'm not a scientist, so you're asking an entrepreneur.
No, based on your experience, I should have started saying, based on your experience.
I'm really, I'm driven by what makes me tick.
Okay.
So I always say I do this from a sort of passion.
Okay.
Yeah,
so what makes you tick, Pim?
What makes me tick?
Where does that passion come from?
So I always try to relate the people I know, the people I meet, with the problems I notice in the world.
Okay.
So the scope for my passion is quite big. Yes,
yeah.
because there's many things
the world, no less.
that take some attention, but which I cannot handle, of course. And I'm not going to. I don't have this. Yeah, there was this movie. that you could one day be God. Who was it?
Yeah, God for a
Yeah.
day or something. I don't know what the name
Yeah,
was.
God
Yes.
for a day.
Yeah.
Which is really tough, doesn't work. And you think you have like this magic wand and you can change this. But the thing is, with solving a problem, is that you get 3 new problems when you have solved the first problem.
Yeah.
So it's not that way. What I do is, or try to do, that's why I'm serial entrepreneur. I try this, try that, and it's serial and parallel entrepreneur to make myself even more complicated. And then, so my passion is, of course, it's not all problems in the world. I have some. So one thing is, that's why I'm interested in, let's say, stimulating entrepreneurship. Is because we have so many challenges in the world that we need everybody. We need to mobilize everybody to come up with solutions, with processes that change our behavior. Because let's be honest, it's many of these crises are self-inflicted. So it's about human behavior. How can we change that? Well, like I always say, if we can change the behavior of 15% of the people, then we can change the behavior of the rest. Yeah, so that's why I connect through entrepreneurship, innovation. I try to mobilize people, inspire them to take on these challenges. And that can be, and then I have certain areas that I'm more, let's say, interested in. So developing entrepreneurial ecosystems, especially in developing countries, regenerative agriculture, impact leadership. So make people leaders of the impact they want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And impact is, again, it's all sort of fashionable word, like innovation. You almost cannot use it anymore. But it is a beautiful frame, at the other hand, of both the negative and the positive effect we have on our, let's say, our peers, other people, and the environment. And to understand, let's say, the feedback loops in those systems. So that's why I love this word ecosystem. I use it already since the 90s. And it's becoming more and more fashionable. So I'm really, because in the, let's say, the early days, people didn't understand anything about it. So I use terms like clusters and networks to explain it. But that's really going on because people are grappling really.
Yeah.
Societies, I'm positive. I'm a really positivo, like most entrepreneurs, by the way. But I can't find many societies that are really on track on solving taking on the bigger challenges like climate, like the growing divide between the haves and the have not, the destruction of our biosphere. I don't see it yet. If the hopefuls are, let's say, organizations or startups, but it's all still fragile. At the same time, when you think you have a win, when bijvoorbeeld, was it in the Netherlands, Shell lost at the courts, so they had to amend their strategy and targets to become CO2 neutral by 2050, I think. But anyway, and they call it Core 2 in 2030, and then also Core 3 in 2050, something like that. So I think, finally, and then they had this announcement, yes, we will do that, no problem. If you look into what they're doing, they're not going to do it. No, because they say, yeah, we tried it, but it's not really, we can't make enough money from it. So we divest in that area. It's not, the margin is not high enough. No, we're talking about 2 years. And then already you conclude that this is so short-sighted. And that's, so it's difficult to change. If you're very successful, like Shell is a successful company, so that's terribly difficult to change that. If you're winning, talking about competition, if you're winning, you don't want to lose that. Yeah. So that's where let's say the structure, the checks and balances should come in. And that's where, let's say, governments and multilateral organizations are missing really big time. And when they try, like in the Netherlands just happened, when they try, the government just collapsed. You have to go to elections again because they fail. They almost succeed, and then something breaks, and they fail again. It's and this, but I think it's part of this. Let's call it transition. It's also a modern, much used word, but for lack of a better frame of that, we are in a time of transition, which is messy, always. And we have to look for the, let's say, the beautiful small initiative. What is the English word for that? We call it in Dutch, translated roughly, grow diamonds. So it starts with
rough diamonds,
small, rough diamonds, yes.
Rough diamonds, yes.
Rough diamonds. We have to look for that and see if we can nurture and stimulate and help them grow. That's what I try to do, at least. And I hope people can.
And I guess then, Pim, if we follow on that idea that, they're not contemplating the big things, they're not really considering the environment, they're not considering more than half of the population, they're really not into that. They're only focused on making money. The only competition that is going to make them change their minds is a competition that takes that money away from them. It's when something is invented, created, or patented that supports the poor or supports the environment and makes money. And then they're going to go like, oh my God, I have to do that too. I don't know, imagine that suddenly electrical cars became very cheap because who knows what, and with an autonomy of a whole year by whatever, then they would change, because then the competition would have the winning hand. But
it is really system change theory, and this is really complicated stuff. But so it's an example. We hope, that's also a theory, this butterfly theory. We must keep hoping that small interventions, small changes will have a ripple effect. Sometimes I see it happen because it could be so inspiring and profitable or valuable that others pick up on it. But I'm not a scientist, so I can believe in it, but I cannot prove it.
No, that's Pim, one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why we created the Institute of Humanology, because
Exactly.
we believe in that, and we think that humankind needs to go back to basics, needs to go back to humankind, and that's why humanology was born, to be one of those seeds that might cause that ripple effect.
Very good. Yes, because it is us.
Yeah.
It's us. You can be religious and think, hope, etc. That's all good. I'm also religious, but it's not this super being that will really help us out here.
Yeah, we have to do it ourselves.
We have to do it. We are the cause. Should also develop the solution, or we get extinct. Maybe not in my lifetime, but in the end. I don't think that will happen, because we've been survivalists as the human race all these ages.
Yeah, but humans haven't been here that long, Pim.
No,
compared
that's
to
true.
the rest of the planet. We've just been here for a few seconds.
That's true. But as a humanoid, so you can make it a bit bigger, and that's also a few million years then we can get extinct. The planet survives that, of course. Bacteria and so on are much longer here than we are. But yeah, if we want to offer something for our children, it's us that have to change the system. And system is, in its essence, behavior. So start with behavior, with our own behavior, and then relate that to a group, the family, the team, the organization. That's the ripple you can be, let's say, causing, can be part of. And that's why this clever cooperation, that's sort of wrapped to the start also in this sense. Clever cooperation really helps to nurture healthy competition.
Yeah, because we are seeing some moves in this sense. For example, today, I was preparing for today's interview with you, and I was checking some information online, and suddenly something popped up, that's the trend today. Something that said something like, we have to stop working on human resources and have resources that are human, or something like that. It was a game of words.
Yeah.
So we're seeing more and more people talking about the importance of human beings.
Yeah.
And that's a shift. That's a small shift, but it's a shift. And I think that will be the basis for that transition or revolution that you're talking about, and that I've been talking about for the last 10 years now. I think there is a shift. I think we're seeing changes. I think that there are some signals that things are changing. I don't know what they look like for sure, but I agree with you. That's a ripple effect.
That's why artificial intelligence is a blessing in disguise, because it will push us, push organizations to make more explicit what is it that we are human. That the existence of an organization, either the Institute of Humanology or the UN or Shell, for that matter, is because we accept that they exist. We recognize that they exist. And they need us, and we are human, I hope, most of us at least. But also the people that give shape to such an organization are also humans. If you take away the humans, replace it by AI, is there still an existence?
Yeah.
A valuable existence? Interesting. That's another topic, but
it is.
It will make it. That's why I call it a blessing in disguise. It will help to to make organization more human.
I think
I
so.
do.
Yeah, I think so too. And I hope so too. Because
Yeah,
at
of
the end of
course.
the day, everything we do as human beings is for us.
Yes.
We say we do things for the planet, we do things for animals. That's not true. We do things for us. And everything a human person does is for themselves. So it's about time we realize that by damaging the planet or damaging nature, we're hurting ourselves because we're
Yes.
doing everything for ourselves. So yeah, totally agree with you. Well, Pim,
Yes.
it's been a very, very interesting conversation. I think we should leave it here because
Yes. Sure.
I think it's enough food for thought for our viewers. I want to thank those who are watching us live now and those who will be watching us later. Do send us your questions if you have any left, if they haven't been answered by Pim in this very short dialogue that I wish could expand for hours and hours because it's so interesting. Thank you very much, Pim. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I found it really interesting. As I said, I'm sure we could talk for hours. And I might invite you for another human dialogue on another aspect of humanity if you're up for it. I want to thank you. And I want to invite you to always follow the International Institute of Humanology, of course, and everything we're trying to do for human beings as human beings. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Namaste. And see you later, Jessica, and keep up the good work. Sorry
Thank
for
you so much.
lunch.
No, it's perfect. Thank you. Just a quick note, our next human dialogue will happen on the 14th of August. We will have Alexandra Fay and we'll be talking about coaching as a tool to grow. Please, everyone, feel invited and join us live on our YouTube channel here on the Humanology channel. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and see you in our next talk